Have you ever heard someone speak about the Spirit working in a super particular way in their life? A way that you've maybe never experienced, and you find yourself with a bunch of questions bubbling up. Questions about the Spirit's work or even the Spirit's presence in your own life. Hearing messages like these from others, I think it has this potential to really rattle us, doesn't it? We can feel unsettled, maybe insecure, as though not having an account of a visible or tangible experiential moment of the Spirit's work in our own lives should cast doubt on the Spirit's presence altogether. You know, I remember being really taken aback by it in early high school, right after I'd become a Christian, going along to the Christian group at school and hearing, one leader speak in tongues and hearing other students talk about dreams or visions that they'd had, certain that they'd come straight to them from God. What did it all mean? Where did these experiences come from? And what did it mean that there were a bunch of us in the room who'd never had experiences like that? What did that mean for us? It's easy to hear and see these things and to think that the visible work of the Spirit is really rare, or that if it seems rare to us, maybe there's something missing. But looking at this particular passage from 1 Corinthians chapter 2, this message from God we've got here, listening to his voice here in Scripture, I've been encouraged at actually seeing that it's almost the opposite that is true. That the Spirit's work is, yes, miraculous, but it's actually not rare. It's an each and everyday occurrence that can be seen in our own lives. This encouragement came for me from 1 Corinthians 2 verse 12 that we've just looked at, where Paul writes, now that's more likely including all Christians, not just the apostles, when he says we in that particular verse. What we have received is not the spirit of the world, but the Spirit who is from God, so that we may understand what God has freely given us. So it sounds a lot like the fundamental purpose and work of the Spirit that is spoken of. Its fundamental work is to lead us to understand God and what he's given us. And I wonder when I last really marveled at that, because that is really a miracle. We're seeing all through this passage, all through this, these early chapters of 1 Corinthians, that without God's help, without the wisdom that comes from God, no one does take hold of the gospel message. And so it is astounding every time the Spirit leads us to understand God and to understand what he's given us. But this astounding, even miraculous phenomenon, it is a work of the Spirit that is visible to us and to others. We get to experience this all the time. Like really, what a gift it is that this fundamental work of the Spirit can be just so intrinsic to our everyday lives as we're grown bit by bit to know God and love God more. So if any of that doubt, that kind of questioning that I was mentioning resonated with you, or even if you've actually always felt quite secure about these things, either way, I think we can all take courage, be really encouraged and comforted and confirmed in the knowledge that the Spirit is actually so active in our lives. The Spirit's active in our lives in far more tangible ways, visible ways, than we might sometimes think. It can be thought-provoking to hear about those other experiences that people might have that seem more like an outlier in the kinds of experiences people have of the Spirit. But at no point do we need to doubt because of this. God's given us all a message here in this word from 1 Corinthians about this fundamental purpose and work of the Spirit. So we can take heart and really marvel at the fact that this kind of work might even seem every day to us. Like, isn't that amazing that God's doing it so much that we can forget just how amazing it is? But the Spirit is and has been active in every little step forward that you've taken. Every little moment you've grown in understanding your salvation and the Lord who gives it to you so freely.